Subnautica is a game that is kinda like facing your own fears. It's the type of game that's not trying to be scary but ends up being scary anyways because of its nature. In fact, it's probably the best example I have of this. The game has a large open world to explore, but as usual, this comes with a lot of mysteries that are unsolved. And since those mysteries are in a game like Subnautica, naturally, they're a little more creepy. So go ahead and get some snacks, get some potato chips, get some root beer, and get a blanket. And with that said, let's get started. The Void is probably something you were expecting me to talk about when you clicked on this video. And if not, well, surprise. Me and probably a bunch of other Subnautica players are very interested in the idea of the Void. What we do know about it is that it's an ecological dead zone with not very much diverse life. But one question I have for the dead zone is, why does it exist? Well, if we're looking from a gameplay aspect, the answer is kinda obvious. The Void is simply put there so that there's a barrier, or a wall around Subnautica's map. And it's a lot cooler than just putting an invisible wall, like some other games do. But if we look at it from a lore aspect, there's not really much we can go off of. We obviously know that the base Subnautica map is definitely not the entire planet. And we know that the rest of the world isn't the Void because Subnautica Below Zero exists. And in Subnautica Below Zero, we can also visit the Void. This means that most of 4546b is the Void, while there's probably multiple craters that are closer to the surface. And just to clarify, the Void is not infinitely deep. In terms of lore, it's actually 3,000 meters deep. But for why the Void exists in the first place, I don't really know. While exploring Subnautica's vast open world, you're bound to find or go to life pods. For anyone who didn't spoil the game for themselves, the life pods you find around the map are almost like a false hope that other people survived. But you'll slowly realize that every single one has their own story for how people died, and you are the only person to have survived. One popular theory around the Subnautica community, though, is the theory that the life pods were designed to fail. This is a post I found on Reddit that explains the theory pretty well, and you can pause the video if you'd like to read the entire thing, but I'm just going to simplify it. The idea of this theory is that if a shipwreck were to ever happen, Alterra may have not have wanted anyone to survive. Because if anyone did survive and come back, they may have some things to say about Alterra that may be hurtful. And so instead, Alterra may just not want to go through that trouble. And another thing to mention, there's only 2 life pods that work like they're supposed to. Every other one has some malfunction. Of course, like most other theories, there are objections to this though. One objection is that the ship wasn't designed to take damage from something so powerful, so most life pods could have been damaged before they even released. Or it could also be the same situation as the Titanic. Overconfidence, so less ways to save people. And another objection is if Alterra wanted people to die in case of a shipwreck, why would they build life pods that were going to fail instead of just not building any life pod at all? In my opinion, I don't find this theory so far-fetched. They could have added the life pods to not work anyway so that it's convincing, but I could totally see it being a Titanic situation. It all makes me wonder though, if the life pods really were made to malfunction, and if Alterra really didn't want anyone to live, why did Ryley Robinson's life pod survive if it was supposed to malfunction to a degree that would kill him? And so this all makes me wonder, what if Ryley Robinson isn't even alive? The next thing I'm about to talk about is something that I think is really bizarre when you really think about it, and I'm going to try to explain this in the most unbiased way possible. But there is a theory that Ryley Robinson, the main character, is dead. Remember at the beginning of the game, when you're landing on the planet while you're in the life pod, a metal plate smacks you in the head. This makes you unconscious for 3 hours while everybody else dies. Well, the theory is that this metal plate actually killed him. You see, when someone usually suffers something like this and they're knocked out for 30 minutes or more, there's a 10% chance that it's fatal. And as I said, Ryley Robinson was knocked out for 3 hours. So the idea is that the Aurora took his body and made a brain simulation. Wait, hold on, let me check this again. And then the theory goes that the Aurora may have taken his body and reconstructed Ryley's brain as a computer simulation, and that the world we explore in Subnautica may have just been completely generated by a computer. Now, I have a lot of issues with this theory, and I'm sure just by me describing it, you do as well. I'm not saying I believe this theory at all, and you may be wondering, how is this a mystery and not just a crazy theory? While this theory may sound kinda crazy, I can kinda get the first part of it. If you are knocked out for hours, it's unlikely that you'll be fully recovered in the future. And there's a lot of things in Subnautica that don't really make sense. Ryley Robinson is somehow able to go extremely deep in the ocean and not get affected by pressure. Every other life pod malfunctioned or people got unlucky and died. But this also could just be a bunch of plot armor. But even with that, I still don't believe this theory at all. If you do and know more about it, then feel free to tell me about it in the comments. The next thing I'm about to talk about is a theory that's not very popular when you compare it to the other things I've talked about. This is more of something that I and some other people have been wondering about the void, so here we go. The Gargantuan Leviathan is considered to be the most huge, big, gargantuan, large, enormous, substantial, colossal, gigantic, immense, and vast Leviathan in all of Subnautica. This is a mod that adds a Gargantuan Leviathan to the game to show players how huge the beast actually is. And it should be noted that what I just showed you is a juvenile. It's not even an adult. This thing is about 5 kilometers in size, which is 3 miles. You could literally fit 53 football fields in the length it takes to cross all of the Gargantuan Leviathan. But this creature is also thought to be extinct, and that's where the theory comes in. Maybe it's not? We obviously don't see any Gargantuan Leviathan in Subnautica besides this one skeleton of what looks like to be a baby. And we also know that this guy was definitely not living in the crater or the base map of Subnautica when you consider how large he actually is. So he most likely lived in the void until his demise. But what if Gargantuan Leviathans are actually secretly still alive? They could still be living in the void and we don't even know it. Remember that Subnautica's base map is a very small portion of a planet, and planets are very large. Is it likely that the Gargantuan Leviathan is still alive? I don't really know, but I do think it's a possibility that they could be living in the void and feeding off of ghost Leviathans, while the ghost Leviathans keep living by feeding off of plankton or microscopic life. And who knows, if what I'm saying is true, maybe they could implement this idea into Subnautica 3 somehow. But either way, it is still very fun to think about. And I'm also kinda glad that he isn't in the game, or else getting footage of the void for this video would be a nightmare. You want to be in the video?
Hi.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Okay, you're in the video now. You said don't get hurt while making the video?
Hi.
Okay, I'll be careful.